Welcome to our next episode in our drowning prevention series. For this episode, we go south of the border to our friends Stacy and Debbie at the Dolfun Swim School in Portland, Oregon. Stacy and Debbie are going to talk to us about safe water behaviors, their recommendations, and things to pay attention to in their area, and talk to us a little bit about their school, what they do, and what their philosophy is. We welcome the ladies. All right, an official good morning to you both. How's with the weather down in Portland?
A little sunny today, but it's supposed to start raining again, which will be really good because we're looking at a drought this year. So the more rain, the better.
And I say sun always. Bring the sun on, figure out the water later. But thank goodness we have lots of water around us. But yeah, they're already talking. It's only May. They're already talking like, we need more rain. And we're like, oh boy. Most of the time we won't say that, but
we're like over 5 inches behind in our annual rain amount this spring.
Yeah. You know, bring it on. Bring it on. With the last year we've had, what else do you expect?
Well, on the West Coast especially, like if you don't get that rain, that leads to a pretty bad forest fire season down the later on in the year. So it's always like this careful and balance that like Mother Nature is always looking after, right?
Yeah.
So
yes, and we had a rough fire season last year, so hopefully we get lots of rain.
And it makes the waterways dangerous right now. So this weekend coming up is our Memorial Weekend for the United States, and they're really talking about that water danger, boating and all the rivers and lakes and everything, for people to be aware that there's not as much water, and that makes it the current faster. It makes a lot of things more dangerous in the water. So it's a great month for us to be, we focus on that water safety for May also.
Well, it's fantastic. So why don't we just get into it in terms of, getting the show started. So, I mean, obviously, the Oregon coast is, one of, the most magnificent coasts in the world, Cannon Beach and that area there.
We think so.
Yeah, well, and I say that from a tourist point of view, because I'm sure you know places that are much more spectacular than Cannon Beach. But that said,
Cannon Beach is pretty fantastic.
If somebody comes to Oregon, we're going to take you to Cannon Beach. That's our first, exposure. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, it's a beautiful place. Anyways, so when I started this show, started this series, we started out with a panel discussion, talking to some experts about drowning prevention and things to pay attention to. And I had a question, I had a thesis that I wanted to answer. And it was largely based on the activity and what was going on here in Canada, but I'm curious how this may apply in the US and what your thoughts might be on it. But because the Learn to Swim industry and community is so effective at what they do such a great job of teaching and getting safe water behavior messaging out and so on and so forth. In Canada, at least at a time like this, when we rely on politicians specifically, to make decisions about what's essential, what businesses can open, what can't open. Water safety was always something that was never prioritized. And now we're in a situation where we expect to see the trend of 2020 continue. We've seen that. I was looking at the numbers out of Australia earlier today, where they're ahead of us, obviously, because of seasons. And drownings have already gone up 38% there. So the thesis is this. We take water safety for granted because of people like you guys that do such a good job of teaching those safe water behaviors every day. And my question or my intent is to have that either validated or debunked. So my opening question is, what do you think? As a culture, as a society, do we take this for granted? We'll go to Debbie first. Let's do it. So we can curate this.
Yeah, so the question is, does our society take this for granted? Obviously, swim school owners, we're in the business of drowning prevention. That's our goal, right? Ultimately. And we work on having fun while we do that. But, we were very concerned. We got ourselves on the news and everything last year that the lifeguards weren't being trained. They weren't going to guard. Even in Oregon, they took the lifeguards off the open water ways that we usually would have lifeguards, saying that they didn't have pools to train those guards. So, our hair was up on the back of our neck, super nervous. And we are interested to see And we felt like our thesis was, and saying to the newscast, yes, we're going to see a higher level of drowning. It's because we aren't having this prevention happen and or protection. So prevention, protection, all the layers that we need for the drowning prevention arena. And so I'll be interested to see what those statistics are. We have a very difficult time pulling those statistics out. We are able to go to a couple different counties at a time or municipalities and grab those incident reports, but it's not comprehensive. So that's the sad part. So we don't know what has and or has been caused for we're going to be 2 years behind knowing if the drowning rates actually went up.
Yeah, and that was mentioned in our panel discussion that the data is a problem because of the time to process, and said it has to. You're basically looking at coroner's reports, which take time to go through the court system, and so on and so forth, right? So, Stacey, your thoughts?
So I actually saw a news podcast or a news broadcast a day ago that was talking about the drowning rates, and that they did go up last year. So they had someone from Multnomah County on, and there was a significant increase, about 30% of drowning rates in our area, and it breaks our heart to see that, because we're in this business to help keep people safe and get that message out there, and we couldn't for a year. So
yeah, fair enough. And I mean, I guess in terms of the stats, I mean, like often, and at one point I was part of this demographic, but it seems to be males between 18 and 30 seem to be the highest culprit of drowning, because we're not necessarily the smartest, at that time in our lives, right?
I like that you actually widen. Usually it's like 14 to 18, but you went all the way to 30.
Well, that's what the stats say, right? So,
yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, we're waiting for the brain to get, a little bit.
There you go. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like out of this series, we've got, several really potent nuggets about drowning prevention, like drowning is silent, happens in 30 seconds or less, so on and so forth, things like that. So, I mean, these are the things that the public is not aware of. And, and this is, like even myself, who's, I was a swimmer for, 10 years. I was a coach for 20 years and took my kid to the pool for swimming lessons. And, she slipped on the deck, went right in the pool. Nobody hurt her. And the fact that, you say the words drowning is silent become ever more real. And it's like, wow, like I didn't think I would turn around for 1 second and she'd be gone underwater. Right. So, anyways, so to that point, you have several bodies of open water, pools, and so on and so forth. What are you doing? What are you communicating out to your membership in terms of the behaviors, things to pay attention to from a water safety point of view? We'll go to Stacey first and then come back to Debbie.
Well, this month we did our Water Safety Month focus, and it was a lot of talking about safe water practices, how to be around open water, making sure that you're wearing life jackets. I was teaching all the parents how to have a proper fit on their life jackets, because some of them brought in their own life jackets for us to look at, and they were wearing life jackets that were too big for their kids or too small for their kids, or just not fitting well to make the life jacket effective. We are also talking about reach or throw and don't go. So teaching the kids to reach for somebody if they are safe only on laying down on their bellies, throwing a life ring for somebody, and yelling for help for an adult, because a lot of kids get themselves into trouble because they go, oh, I can swim, and then they want to go in and help somebody who is having trouble in the water. So we did that focus yesterday or this week, actually, this whole week. And the kids are having a lot of fun with it. And I'm getting a lot of parents who go, oh, I didn't know that. So it's really educating our parents as well.
Fair enough. And over to you, Debbie.
Yeah, so I think we have the fortune of our parents being on deck with us. And there's always different pros and cons about that. But the good thing is that they can hear every word that we're talking to these kids about. And what we know is it's a triangle relationship. We have to educate the parent as well as the behavior of the child, and let the parent know where's the boundaries that your child does or does not have. The one thing I thought was a great incident that just happened this week. Stacy, do you want to tell us about the little boy that went swimming in the Sandy River?
Oh, yes. We have little guy, or he's a bigger guy. I don't know. He went swimming in the Sandy River, and which is one of our swimming holes around here. A lot of people go and swim in it, but a lot of people swim in that river without a life jacket. And he did. And so he came and he was telling me about how he went and swam in the Sandy River. And I asked, it was the week after we did life jackets. So I am asking him, like, okay, so did you wear your life jacket? And he's like, no, there were like 100 people around me. I didn't need to wear a life jacket. Like, no, you always have to wear that life jacket in the water. If you're in open water, you don't know what's there. So you have to wear a life jacket to keep yourself the safest.
Yeah. So it was a great opportunity, that lesson tip to learn for the parent to hear. And she was able to like reinforce to the parent, they got to have a life jacket on. It's a really dangerous area. We have a lot of drownings on this particular river in that particular area. It's relatively shallow water. So it seems, but you know what that means? It means it's shallow and then drops off hard. So, you know, always kids have a little more confidence than they might know about. And in the pool, we don't have current. We don't have rapids. We don't have undertows. The ocean, you know, in Oregon has this terrific undertow happening that's very, you know, we're always talking about don't turn your back to the water. Don't turn your back to the ocean. Always face. So all those little tips that we're trying to get across. And Stacy's done a great job. She's made sure we had printed promotional information going out with all of those tips and safety tips, basically, for people to know for the summer.
That's fantastic, because as we're saying, you know, the education piece is what makes you guys stand out and ultimately creates a deficit in the understanding by decision makers and legislators as to the importance of this. It's like, you know, you need to prioritize this. And recently with the announcement from the WHO that this is a worldwide issue that everybody needs to pay attention to, you know, makes it even more real, right? So thank you for sharing that. So maybe tell me a little bit more about the Dolfun Swim Academy now. Tell me, where did it start? And what are you guys doing? What is your philosophy? Tell me about the kids that come through the school. Let's go to Debbie first.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I got started back in 1994, taking my own 18-month-old child to a swimming lesson because somebody knew somebody that was teaching water babies, which I had never heard of before. And they said, you know, she needs some brochures or some marketing done. And I was a business consultant, marketing, you know, background. I said, yeah, sure. Well, let me go do my research. Took my child and I fell in love with the water. My child had some special needs, and the water magically, as we all know, like enlightened and gave us that information about what his needs were. And I was, you know, I was her best campaign manager for water babies. And then long story made short, she ended up leaving the industry. I was still connected with her, taking my children there. And people started asking me, you know, where are we going to go? And I was like, I don't know. I go over to this school over here. So I called that school and they went there and they came back to me and said, where else are we going to go? We want to go somewhere else. It, you know, it was out of the way. It wasn't where we lived. So long story made short, started my business, started swim school. I was a mortgage broker at the time. So it was a different leap for sure. I hired people to run some of my mortgage company for me because I started loving this business. And 6 months later, I left my back corporate life and came into the swim business and never looked back. So that's where we've been. We are a child-centered approach methodology, I would say. And my background also in college, I had studied childhood development. I was going to be a teacher, but then I decided I couldn't make enough money for some reason at that age. That's what I thought. So I became a fashion merchandiser at that time. So I brought a lot of business approach to the business of swim school. And I think that's how we've also stayed in business over all the years, through all the different economies. I knew we would make it through this last year also. You know, it was a hiccup that we needed to figure out. And I just fell in love with the fact that we can be making a difference in people's lives. I mean, people ask, you know, what do you do? And you get to do something that you're passionate about. Well, you know, what's there more to be passionate about than saving children's lives and being preventative about that and building relationships? I just love the part that comes with this in building relationships with families. And so we've really taken more of an approach like the mind, body, soul balance that the water brings to us. And we look at, you know, what are the neurological benefits? What are the physical benefits? All of those things, and working on communicating that with parents. And in 2006, I found if I brought the parents in first and talked to them about what their journey with this program would be with their babies in the water, that they are highly educated. All of our clients and customers, they're highly educated people to be in this industry, as you know. We want to serve all the markets, but that is our demographic. And when they were educated, we had a better experience. We minimized the fear factor, gave them information to make good decisions. And so they would know that we were going to have a 4 or 5 year journey with them, and maybe longer. Mm. And that we're, you know, we may or may not fit. And I am happier than anything to send them on to another school or location that's closer to them, that they will go every week. And so I started going out to the hospitals. Somehow or another, I had a connection. I started talking to the parent and me, moms and dads groups. When you're first born, you come back to the hospital. So I'd come back there, and that's where we started building the education. I wasn't selling my business. I just wanted to educate the public. And we've been at 18 different locations over the years in Portland, Oregon, with any water that we can find that we can rent, and backyards, apartments, leasing, renting, you know, condos, clubs. And now finally we're hoping to build our own facility coming up here so that we can have a solid home to serve our country, you know, our counties and our community. Mm-hmm. And the biggest change that we made this last year was changing the timing of our classes. And what we found is we had to get less children in. So that was heartbreaking. When we'd been closed from May till October, we couldn't get all the kids back in. Every single child is, you know, a family that we know. And so we moved over to a 20-minute lesson and got 3 families in per hour into our programming. And that's been a great asset to the community and getting the numbers of children in, because again, we feel this a little bit of pressure when summer's coming in our community, right? We're like, oh my gosh, we need to get every single body and every single child. And you know what we found out? Our municipalities are not going to be open most of their indoor pools, even this summer. Mm-hmm. So we're super upset about that. We can't service all of them, of course. So we're doing our best to try to get a second location open up as fast as we can so we can get those kids in the water.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's absolutely clear. You know, when I talk to Stacy, you know, like I hear like the good vibes that come across the phone about your school and what you do, and hearing from the founder, you know, hearing that enthusiasm, that passion, all that stuff. It all makes sense. It all comes together here. So, Stacy, did you want to weigh in on that as well?
So I come with a strong swimming background where I did work for the public pools for 7 years. And so coming over to Dolfun after all of this swim experience has been amazing. And I love that every lesson that we do, there is actually a water safety factor in there. And that's one of our biggest things. Even when we go out and we do teach classes, like we'll go out and teach a bath time class. And in the bath time class, we talk about water safety at home. Like your child can drown in 1 inch of water. It can happen. You know, you have to know what water can do to your family. And so when we go and teach, we talk about bathtub safety and how to be safe around bathtubs or backyard little splash pools. And the development and the knowledge that we try to give to our community is really precious. And I hope that we can expand on it and keep growing, and maybe partner with some of those bigger pools a little bit more to extend their programs and extend their knowledge.
You mentioned the bathtub classes. Was that an adaptation for COVID, or was that something that you were doing before?
That's actually something we've done for a number of years,
Yeah.
a long time. And
since 1995, 96.
Yeah.
Bathtub baby time.
Yeah. And so we did it actually for a while with Babies R Us, which closed, unfortunately. And they were a really great partner to work with, as we could really reach with a lot of babies. And parents would come and we'd talk about, like, how do you hold this slippery child and make sure that they stay warm and safe, and that you're using the bathtub time to teach your child to be around water. So, you know, not wiping their face after their face gets wet is very key to teaching them how to be in water. So if you wipe their face, that's the habit they get. And when they enter a pool or a lake or a river, that is what they try to do. And that means that they can't use their hands to swim, which is a factor in drowning. So it starts from just that bath time.
Yeah. We started working, or I started working myself in the birthing centers. So we have a lot of water birthing centers here, and I was working with the international birthing center called Water Birth International, and they happen to be here out of Wilsonville, near Portland, Oregon. And so we would literally go to the birthing center after the birth of the baby and take them back in the bathtub the next day or two right after that. So I couldn't, everybody was asking, can we get in the pool? I'm like, there was nothing in the United States back in 1995 in our area that I could learn or educate myself with. However, a person named John Bainbridge was a friend with Water Birth International, Barbara Harper, and he was in town, and he just had his new baby, and he was putting the baby in the bathtub. And so he came up and started working with me, and I was, you know, sailing with that ever since, and found out that, you know, if we can get with the sooner that we can get with those babies and the families, the better. And making them understand that it's okay. Water's safe. They just lived in water. They're, you know, first part of their whole life. Now they're here on Earth with us. So now how do we minimize that space? Because it used to be swim schools, traditional swim school, private swim school, would start around 8 months. And I couldn't figure out why we weren't getting them back in the water right away. So our goal was to minimize that gap. And the, you know, the relationship and the bonding. And what I love is that the dad gets an opportunity to be with the baby at a time that mom is with the baby quite a bit during that first age. And this is like a space and time that he gets to have. I mean, I can't believe how many dads are in our classes. Like they come once and they're like kicking the mom out. Like, okay, I got this. This is my activity with my baby. And they can, you know, have a great time with them. We make sure that our there's a lot of play. I think all of us learn better through play. And so we make sure we initiate that in the water too, even with those little itty bitties. And then we can start them, you know, we can start them at 8 weeks in the pool. We're able to keep our water warm enough at that 92 degrees or 33 Celsius right in there. So we're able to emphasize that you need warm water to be able to work with those kiddos. But
yeah, and it sounds like you're perfectly set up for that. I want to finish this off with just some quick tips from both of you on things to pay attention to around open water and on the pool. But before that, you know, I would say from what I've seen based on conversations and whatnot, Debbie, you're almost an authority figure in this space. I know that people bring you in to teach your program, and you consult quite a bit with swim schools. And I wonder if you could shed some light on that, and from the point of view of why are they bringing you in, right? And what are they looking to get from you?
Yeah, thank you. I guess that's what happens when you've been in the business this long. Then I don't know if I'm authority or not, but I am happy to share whatever information I've learned, and I learned through hard knocks a few times or so. I'm just super, I feel so blessed, and I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to share with other people. We always have our slogan is like one baby at a time, one child at a time, one day. We're saving that one life at a time. And I get to go and teach other teachers, what knowledge I've learned over time. And so I feel like we're just able to expand that. And I do travel around the world and get to do that. Why they bring me in is I think that people are looking for that next level of information. A lot of swim schools start because they know, of course, we need to save lives. In China, we work in China quite a bit, or I work in China with some clients, and drowning prevention is not even on the list. They have learned that child development, they really have a child development approach, a lot of play and fun, which is also excellent, but they do a lot of things that we would see as alarming because they just don't know. They don't have the drowning rates that we're seeing. They do have high drowning rates, but it's not part of their conversation. So I get to bring that piece of the conversation to them and go, look, that behavior in the pool can be dangerous. Let's do it this way. So I'm just giving them additional pieces and pies and benefits and maybe tips and techniques that they wouldn't have otherwise known. And so with veteran schools, working with schools that have been a long time, we just have a little bit maybe a different approach. We also have a very strong preschool elementary approach that is linked in with the total immersion approach. So we work on that approach with and we've rewritten all of our lessons to incorporate that information. So some people will come and train with us at our facility as to come into our baby program, and we definitely have had a strong baby program. That's where I started. I wasn't a swim teacher. I had no coaching. I swam when I was young on a swim team, and but I had no knowledge. So when I taught a 3-month-old, then I had to learn how to teach a 6-month-old. And so what I did is I watched that child and I saw what worked in the water with them, and then I feel like they were teaching me. So it's taken years to get to the point where we have a very comprehensive curriculum. So they're just looking for those extra tips and techniques just to elevate their, training and their knowledge, and maybe learning more of the why. I think the biggest reason people bring me in is because I talk about the why. I talk about the neurological functioning of the brain. How does that work in our whole body? Why do we want to use our core of our body to swim versus our secondary propulsion of legs and arms? Take those off and what happens? So learning about breath, buoyancy, and balance and what that looks like. We know you have to have that, but how do you do that with technique? So we've got a couple little fun techniques that we've learned over the years. And when people see that, they think, well, that's kind of interesting and new. And so I look at people's programs and incorporate what they might take to the next level as an offering to their families or their children in program. I can also come in and I also consult on business development, pool development, staffing development, that type of thing, as far as what people may or may not be operating efficiently, and we had to pivot all this year. I think a lot of people have got the opportunity to learn, what am I going to do to keep this business moving? So that's part of what we help with too.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it's certainly, you've seen the resiliency of several people in the industry There certainly have been casualties, but for the majority, like you've seen the resiliency in terms of being able to adapt, figure out ways, how do we fit, what is the new normal going to look like, and so on and so forth, right? So that's fantastic. So
you can't put an entrepreneur down. If you're an entrepreneurial spirit, don't even give us a challenge, right? Because we're going to
you'll find a way.
Yeah, we're going to find a way.
Exactly.
And I think we've actually connected better this whole year and helped each other. If one person was down, we helped them back up. Everybody pulled each other along and regrouped and became stronger as an industry.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic to have both of you here. So to wrap this up, we want to stay focused on drowning prevention and the information that the public needs to know, so on and so forth. So in your own list individually, some key things that people need to pay attention to, whether it's out at the lake, on the coast, at the ocean, or backyard pools, whatever the case is. And don't worry about being repetitive, because if the public needs to hear it, they can hear it twice. So let's go to Stacy first.
Well, the first thing is to teach your child to sit and wait for permission to enter the water. That is the number one prevention. If they don't have permission to enter the water, they should not be entering the water. That is our biggest thing. We do that every single lesson with every single child. They all have to have permission to enter the water. They shouldn't be touching the water without you saying that they can do that. And then otherwise, use your safety equipment. If you're out boating, wear the life jacket. Just having it is like having your seatbelt in the car and not wearing it. It's an accident waiting to happen. Wear your tools. Use your tools. Make sure that you have them. And make sure that they all fit well, and inspect them regularly. So if you have old equipment, make sure to replace it with new equipment when it's getting worn and frayed. And then that's your big open water tip. And then otherwise, make sure that you are doing year-round swim lessons as much as you can, because that water exposure is a lifesaver. The kids learn how to navigate water systems, we do jumping in with clothes, making sure that the kids know how their body is going to feel if they fall into a body of water, wearing a life jacket, wearing their clothes, what to do if they're stuck in the middle, extended back floats, making sure that those kids can float for a long time. They get 5-minute back floats, and we really do time them 5 minutes. They got to do that 5-minute back float, know how to keep themselves up so that if something happens, they can be safe and their life is saved.
Very comprehensive.
Yes, very. All the time.
Yeah, and don't we teach them how to remove their clothes. So depending on the age of the level and what we know their skill levels are, we've been working with them week after week after week, and then we have the test week, or the safety week, we call it, which we do every May. And so they learn how to take their clothes off, or to jump in without goggles. Learning how to swim without your goggles. You're not going to fall off a boat and have your goggles on. But for swimming lessons, we encourage goggles, especially your goggles, and $14,000. But we make sure that every lesson they learn to wear their goggles for safety, so we can create the positive behavior they need for when they fall in water. And that they know their surroundings, understand their surroundings, look around and see where it is to go to also rescue yourself. Because ultimately it's about self-rescue. So learning how, when you get to the top of the water, parents will actually ask us, why do you flip the baby over? Or why do you teach the child to flip right when they get to the top of the water? And that sounds like a ridiculous question, right? When we all know it as professionals, but we're like, that's where the air is. That's where, right when you're at the top, you need to grab that breath, because you may only have a second before you go back under. You need to teach them at the interface of that water is where you grab that breath, recirculate, and re-prepare yourself because you may be going back under.
Fair enough. And any advice around specifically, and I'll go to Debbie on this one, backyard pools. I know there's been a high incidence of purchase of backyard pools with indoor pools being closed and people looking for a water source. So some safety tips around the backyard.
Yeah, well, that was one of our first approaches when we found out, you know what, we're closed. We're going to be closed for the summer. Our biggest campaign approach was backyard safety and what to do. And where I started was teaching in backyards and taught for many years in backyards and apartment building pools. So yes, the pool purchasing industry went crazy last year. Even our customers were saying, we're putting in a backyard pool. They'd call us to find out who to have install the backyard pool. So talking about the preventions of, you know, making sure you have a gate around the pool, again, not going in the water. So those layers of prevention of making sure you have the gate, don't go near the water, need permission, then you have your safety equipment and or how to self-rescue. And really talking about all of those different layers of prevention were super important. And that's where we completely focused our attention in our media and our Facebook and out to our customers, really getting that information out there. Just, you know, that they need an adult to be in the water. We talk to the children, you need to ask permission and the adult has to be in the water. You know, just because we're standing around behind you doesn't mean it's okay for you to get in. Mm-hmm. No matter, even if there's another person, you have to have your, what we call person in charge with you and give you permission. So yeah, that was super scary. We were all over the news and the media about that, just because it like, okay, now as professionals, we might not giving the swimming lesson, which is only one layer of protection. We need all these other layers to make sure that we're in front of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that parent education piece, because you have the parents on deck with you, is super important. Because often one of the other things that's been revealing about these shows and conversations is like, and I'm going to pull a quote from a show we recently did. I'm probably not going to do it justice, but I will try. Is that you can't put the onus of safety squarely on the kid. At the end of the day, as a parent, like you have to be aware of what's going on. So you can't turn your back, take a sip of a beer, walk away, and so on and so forth. You have to be present.
Yep. You know, I just had we have so many stories. So I had a niece call me. They're in the backyard. They're at a birthday party. She used to teach for me, so she's pretty aware of the safety factors. And she watched a mom set a 2-year-old down in the water. Water was about 2 feet deep. So the water's up here, right there. That's where you've lost your balance in your body. Mm-hmm. So especially a 2-year-old. And so she sat there and watched the mom put the child in the pool, told the dad, hey, I'm going to go in the house. Dad still doesn't turn around and watch the child. My niece walks over just to, you know, observe the lifeguard basically. And sure enough, that little girl fell under the water and she looks over at the dad. She's looking, nobody's going to do anything, are they? So she, you know, picked the child up out of the water, furiously walked her into the parent. And I won't tell you the rest of the story, but a little lecture.
We can leave that to the imagination.
Yes.
But we can all imagine what might have happened. So.
That could have been just this very, you know, it's always, that's why we call it accidents. Yes. So being alert and aware and, you know, being a water watcher and what to watch for, and that your face, if you're the water watcher, does not leave that space where that child is at. Mm-hmm. And we even talk about, some people will say, you know, make sure you're within arm's length. But I love what Robert Strauss taught us. He said, be sure you're within the child's arm's length, because the child needs to be able to reach you. Mm. So that's a little distinction. That's one of our little distinctions that we have in our program that we work on, you know, in educating the kids and the parents.
That's fantastic. Well, this has been packed full of information and things to pay attention to.
And final words. Something about water watchers really quick.
Sure.
So if you are using you have to be using a water watcher. If you're at a pool, like a backyard pool, you must have an adult with their eyes on the water. And a key to that is actually them not having their cell phone, right? They can't have a cell phone. And if you have like a tag that says water watcher that they hold on to, or they have on, and then if they need to go and leave, they have to pass that to another adult to watch the water. And that's for your like backyard parties, that's going to be a key to keeping everybody safe, is you have that, like, baton, it can be a bubble wand, whatever. That's your water watcher stick today. And you make sure that you have that stick. If you need to go do something, it gets passed. Then they have their eyes on the water. So you're keeping everybody safe.
The responsible, yeah, of course. And the water watcher piece is something that's come up in a few episodes, and I think that's a clear example of why we take, like, as a society, so not you two, but everybody that subscribes to your service and everybody else around them, why they take it for granted, right? Because it's important to you. You relay the message with urgency, with passion, saying you got to be safe, you got to do this. And because you do such a good job, it's certainly not a critique, not meant to come across this way, but because you do such a good job, the people that should be paying attention to the job that you're doing aren't paying attention to the job that you're doing, right? And so hence my theory that we take water safety for granted seems to be true, because you don't hear any government saying, if you have a pool, you need to have a water watcher. If you have a pool, I mean, like, I know there are fence laws, there are barrier laws. Our discussion panel revealed that they're not consistent across the country, and they're not that strict, right? They're not easily enforceable as well, right? So it's just further to that point. Anyways, I really want to thank you two for your time today. Before we go, any final words for people listening or the public?
Go have fun and be safe, and be sure you put safety first and then have fun. I would say that I should have reversed that, but definitely it's important. Water is very attractive, and we want to be in the water, and we love our water, but we need to respect the water. That's our ultimate goal.
Fair enough. And to you, Stacy?
I would just say the exact same thing. Be safe, have fun, and the water is fun. And please do get swim lessons for everybody. And you have to have all of your kids in the water.
Well, thank you very much. And I look forward to catching up with you two ladies sometime soon. Have a fantastic opening to your summer. I know it's Memorial Day weekend this weekend, so there still is fun to be had safely. Enjoy it, and look forward to connecting soon.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us, Jason.
Spending time with you.
Yeah, my pleasure, and thank you for sharing your words of wisdom.
You bet.
If you like the content we've been creating online with the On Deck show, and recently our drowning prevention series, and all the stuff we share on our social media channels, like and follow for more.